it's a continuing story, isn't it?
I'd love to bring you some Christmas cheer, Mark.
But
retail sales aren't doing badly. There's been a breakthrough in nuclear fusion, which is a kind of new form of energy.
Eventually.
Eventually, but the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, it does its industrial trends survey. It's been going for years and years and years.
And it's a biggie.
It's a very authoritative survey, and I can just bring you the headlines here. This shows that between October and December, Mark, you had output down in 11 of 17 UK manufacturing sectors, and this is a survey of 220 manufacturing firms. So this isn't just a sort of snapshot. I mean,
all sorts of sizes.
Absolutely. And one of the CBI economists, Anna Leach, this is what she said. We can just put it up as a graphic. The corrosive effect of higher inflation on demand is increasingly clear as manufacturing output contracted at the fastest pace in 2 years over the last quarter. A quarter is 3 months, of course. While some global price pressures have eased in recent months, cost and price inflation will likely remain very high in the near term, with rising energy bills a key concern for manufacturers. Now, I can give you just a little bit of colour, Mark, on that last point, rising energy bills, because you may remember the mini-budget back in September with Liz Truss and Kwarteng as Prime Minister and Chancellor. It seems so long ago. And I said at the time, what really spooked financial markets wasn't that they wanted to cut the top rate of tax, which cost pennies relative to the all public spending.
45% rate, yeah.
Yeah. What really spooked the markets is that Truss and Kwarteng had implemented an energy support package, not just for households, but also for firms and businesses, that lasted 2 whole years. And that really freaked out financial markets because it meant the British government...
Open-ended, effectively.
Open-ended borrowing commitment. So then Jeremy Hunt, when he came in to calm things down, he cut that energy support package for households and for businesses until it ended in April, right? Now, guess what? The Treasury is currently working on a new energy support package for businesses that goes all the way to April 2024.
Another year.
So it's not a million miles away from what Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss originally argued for, and it will really it will be much less generous than the Kwarteng Truss thing, but it will particularly help vulnerable sectors like steelmakers, also hospitality. Now, that's unofficial, what I've just said, but that's what I'm hearing from the Treasury.
Right, and we've got the steelmakers looking as if they might be on strike as well and asking for government help and so on. The snapshot that KPMG, which is a small group of economists, but, you know, they are at the sharp end, recession to last until the end of next year, shallow but protracted, which is what we've heard elsewhere. What does that mean for these manufacturing firms? That they've still got to basically hold on for another year if they can?
Just to rewind slightly, if I may, the steelmakers aren't saying they'll strike, not as far as I know. They're saying that the energy is so high that they can't make any money.
Right.
This is what Gavin Stace, who's a friend of GBNews, the Steelmakers Federation spokesperson, he said this to myself and Nigel Farage last week, that steelmakers in Britain, and steelmaking still employs 32,000 people in this country, right? We're not a backwater. But because the energy costs are so high, they just can't make any money. So they've just got to stop manufacturing because otherwise the company...
Right, so it's not a strike, they just can't afford to carry on.
That's right. They're warning that energy is so expensive that they simply can't function. And KPMG, they're one of the big 4 accounting firms, very authoritative. What they're doing is they're saying pretty much the same as the Bank of England. They reckon the recession is going to be long, so the economic contraction will last for a long time, but it will be relatively shallow compared to, say, what happened during COVID, when GDP fell by 10%, or what happened in the global financial crisis of 2008-9 when GDP fell by about 6%. So you've now got all the big institutions lining up saying what the Bank of England said wasn't a complete outlier. They do think there's going to be a prolonged recession. I would just add my 2 pence, though. I think they're being a little bit too pessimistic. I do think now inflation will fall relatively quickly in the new year. I'm not nearly as gloomy as these guys. A lot of these guys... They didn't predict inflation coming in the first place, and some of us did.
And what's interesting is that there are still lots of job vacancies out there.
Still lots of jobs.
Which is not what we've seen in previous recessions when unemployment really starts to
Exactly right. Now, they have to have a caveat there, right? A lot of GBNews viewers and listeners will know that the jobs aren't always in the places where people want to work.
Or zero-hour contracts and so on.
The conditions might not be great. And also... many of our unemployed, though it's quite a small number, won't have the skills to fulfil those jobs. That's what we call geographic and occupational mismatch. But the vacancies are out there. They're coming down, but there's still more than 1 million vacancies, which suggests that not all business leaders are as gloomy as those who are surveyed by the CBI.
Including you. Excellent. A little bit of